this is a breakdown of the general global situation as far as the economy is concerned and the general lack of awareness of how the global financial system and economy really works, which is being used to the advantage of those pushing this big plan, so to speak, as it's an easy sell to the American public that tariffs are good and trade deficits are bad. So this looks like a global plan to crash the global financial system and economy masquerading as Make America Great Again. And there's also a link to the Collabor event and the big role it likely plays in all of this. So we get straight into what this is all about. So this is all about trade deficits. So the general public isn't really aware that of how the economic system really works and why the US has a trade deficit and why it needs to have a trade deficit as well as the global economy needs it. The global economy actually runs off US dollars because that's the basis of the global financial system, world trade, and all that. So in order for the world to have a supply of dollars, which is the basis of how everything runs, there needs to be a net outflow of dollars from the United States. And for there to be a net outflow of dollars into the global economy and the global financial system, the US needs to purchase way more than they need to purchase way more than they produce and export. In other words, a massive trade deficit is necessary. So the world produces all these goods and the US buys them, but in return they don't produce nearly as much. So the world is paying a lot more for goods in US dollars. So the world is left with all these dollars, and that is how the dollars come into existence in the first place for the world to have all this supply. And then the dollars eventually then circulate back through the system as they pay debts. So the world is buying debt. The world is buying US debt, and that's how everything runs. So that's the basis of how the global financial system works. And so if there is a stop in the system, simply stopping or greatly reducing, you don't even need to stop it. Just reducing significantly the US trade deficit with the world would shut down and disable and effectively implode this very system, how the global economy and financial system works. And so what they're doing with this so-called trade war, even not like say tariffing and stopping everything, just the amount that they're doing will be enough to effectively crash the whole global system, financial system, trade, everything. The whole system will will go down just with a certain amount of reduction in U.S. trade with the world, with their trade, with a reduction of their trade deficit. So that's what. So like for instance, after those exemptions given to China, and then the coming sectoral tariffs, that's not stopping all trade with the U.S. That's not stopping all their imports. But this, um, and, and we're already, by the way, halfway there now with what tariffs are currently in place and what tariffs will be coming according to the news this morning about the coming sectoral tariffs. So that's like roughly the next half, or maybe we might have like just a little more than half of our eventual tariffs in place already when you consider the auto tariffs. But then there's parts coming also, auto parts coming. So I don't know, somewhere around half of the tariffs are already in place. So we are already halfway into the process of cutting cutting trade with the US. In other words, exports to the US. Although there is a delayed effect because there was a rush. Yeah, there was also a rush of advance moves of importers in the US bringing goods into the US. So this temporarily caused a massive spike. You can just envision the way the whole system works. You can actually go to the uh, balance of trade, and then then we have to go to the US. So go to G20 and then go down to the US, and then you will see, and we go to 10 years, and then so you'll see, so there's a temporary massive explosion of the trade deficit as all these importers imported way more even to deal with it. That itself could play part of a role in how things will seize up after, because they of course stockpile all that stuff. But that means that with the higher tariff rate in place after, that uh, there's going to be like massive idling of activity where in the countries where they bought them, because if they stockpile them, that means that they intend to actually purchase or import uh, a really greatly reduced amount once the tariffs are in place. So again, half of them are already in place. So that's one part of the story. And so starting in a month or so, when the final set of tariffs are in place, that will be enough to do the eventual damage that will happen. So what's going to happen now, starting when that happens, so by mid-year, when we are pretty much done with all the tariffs already being put in place, the necessary outflow of dollars to keep the economic system running will already be shot. So it's important to mention also the way the whole global financial system works is you need a constant outflow. Like you don't like not just stockpiling dollars, but a constant massive outflow of US dollars through that trade deficit system for the economy to function. So the hit will be immediate once all the tariffs are in place. They're done stockpiling. The sudden rush of imports in the US subsides. All that will be done roughly around next month or latest by June. Then the outflow of US dollars into the global economy is already going to be way down. And that immediately begins the process of the liquidity crisis. It's this liquidity crisis that will be the basis for the coming crash. This is what's behind the real situation that's going to come. So now the world will not be obtaining its continuous mass flow of US dollars to pay for stuff. So basically the world uses this huge outflow of dollars from the US's imports to buy US bonds, treasuries, that kind of stuff, buying that's US debt. So like buying US debt and holding US dollars so it function as a global reserve currency, because regardless, it is the reserve currency, and that's how the global economic system completely works. And then so judged judged on that, it looks like the seizing up of the financial system could happen pretty quick. I mean, they are obviously, if the US is stockpiling goods this fast in advance of well, the tariffs, that means there's temporarily going to be a huge stocking up of dollars. So the effects aren't even felt yet. No effects probably will be felt really. Well, I don't think it's unclear. Maybe effects will already start soon since the tariffs have already been coming into place halfway. Half of them are in place, but overall, the full impact um, that brings us closer to collapse that doesn't even start at all until all his tariffs are done. So yeah, it looks like by June at the latest, he's done. Donald Trump is done with putting the vast majority of the tariffs in, and then everything goes down from there. So the world will be cut off from the necessary supply of dollars to circulate in the global financial system, and then everything I therefore expect to start seizing up through the second half of the year. So they won't be buying government debt, and this is actually fascinating. That means that they won't be, the US won't be issuing debt because the world won't have this supply of dollars. So you see where this is going? Debt won't be sold, so the US's debt won't really be going up anyways. You know, the US economy to actually keep functioning also needs to keep rolling over the debt also. That's why the debt keeps going up. The GDP has to keep expanding. Just to keep the whole thing from crashing, you need everything to keep expanding. Everything points to the fact that this is it. This is the mother of all crashes. So I have just explained how all this works. We can see it's definitely coming. We will 100% know once these tariffs are in place. Once you see that these tariffs are officially implemented, then you know this is it. You need to be prepared. It's pretty clear what's coming. The the lifeblood of the global financial system, which is having dollars to run everything and the debt and everything, is going to be cut off as soon as the second half of Donald Trump's tariffs are in place. By the way, the details on what these were the the pharmaceutical, the computer chips, semiconductor, and electronics imports. And then also the final part of the automotive, which is the auto parts imports, which also come into effect in May. So there's still a lot more to go. Once these come into place, which they do indicate that they are supposed to come, so it looks like they're coming. Once they're in place, then you absolutely know the crash is going to come. This is how the global financial system really works. And so now we can move on to the other part of this. Because like with the Culebra event coming, it looks like they're doing just enough not to immediately bring the collapse of the global economy. That's maybe why they are pushing back a bit on it, because you don't have to do it up completely, as I've mentioned sometime earlier. It doesn't need to be done completely to cause enough of the damage. They're doing just enough to damage and undermine the foundation of the global economy and financial system so that it wobbles and gets close enough to the crash without the crash actually happening yet. So before the Culebra event happens, they will have weakened everything enough. The US will get pushed closer maybe to default or something, and the world's use of the dollar. I mean, it's not going to lose its reserve currency status, by the way. So they are constricting global activity by restricting the outflow of US dollars. So that will significantly undermine everything right away. There's also, let's not forget Donald Trump's 10% baseline tariff, global baseline tariff at 10%. That's in place also. So that does have, it's supposed to have an impact, so it will have an impact. that alone plays part of a role in starting the impacts on reducing the distribution of US dollars, because those tariffs pretty much equal taking money out of the system basically. So that'll have an impact too. Europe is heavily dependent on pharmaceutical, automotive, and electronics exports to the US. So this will also heavily undermine Europe. I had a feeling that they were going to be trying to target Europe. They're not going to be leaving it out. So these specifically target Europe. Europe heavily dominates. I calculated Europe constitutes about 72% of exports of pharmaceuticals in the global economy, in total global exports of medicaments, or however you pronounce that, pharmaceuticals. So this is directly aiming at them, and they also, well, they share with East Asia, the auto exports, and then there's electronics. But overall, it very heavily impacts Europe. That's for sure. So they will have effectively undermined Europe. It's also interconnected. It's supposed to mean that the damage, the overall damage to China and East Asia would also reverberate back to Europe also. Overall, I'm pretty sure they have calculated how much they need. It's clearly a plan that they have for the collapse. So whatever they did, they've calculated in, and it's enough. They don't have to apply more tariffs to do the end game, which is obviously to collapse. This isn't to make everything great again, obviously. So whatever number of like percentage of tariffs are being applied is enough to bring just enough weakness to the global economy to bring it close enough to collapse, but without collapsing it before the mega quake, as I've mentioned earlier, because it looks it makes a lot of sense that you would not want things to crash before the mega quake. As we get to that part next, there are very, very, very clear signs that the mega quake is coming based on the pressure signals that you can now see. So the economy will be weakened the most it can before it, thanks to what they have done. And then the Culebra event, the coming magnitude 10.3 earthquake, will be the trigger. It will just be viewed as the cause, not the trigger. The public won't know that the economy was already teetering on collapse and was doomed to fail and go down anyways, and was being brought there part of the way by this whole grand tariff plan. When the Culebra event happens, it's going to be the pin that pops everything. It'll be the trigger of the big crash. Nothing compared to what has happened in the past, in our recent past. As we look at the situation of earthquakes, this is the current pattern. When you compare it to normal times, there's this massive gap. This is all about intermediate depth earthquakes. So we've been getting very shallow and very deep, but missing intermediate depth. And to see that there is something unusual about it, I did some comparisons with past periods. So you can see the intermediate depth earthquakes are supposed to be abundant, but they are gone. This is for magnitude 4.8 and up sizes. Yeah, for intermediate depth. I think it's hard to figure out why the change really happens from the tightening, but it's very evident that the change is indeed happening, and that is because of the tightening. And it's very probable. I have a rational explanation for it. It's that as the plates tighten at intermediate depth, the plates are being firmed up. So the surface continues to deform, and at depth, deformation also happens. But because the plates are only to a certain depth, like in the brittle portion, at intermediate depth, everything just firms up, and then just and there's an anomalous change to what depths get the earthquakes and which ones don't, which can be explained by the tightness. So all around Japan, especially center to East Japan and points east, it is missing these earthquakes because it's so tight, it's nothing's moving in here except of course at depth, and there are some surface earthquakes, which makes sense. Deformation due to the pressure happens, but the visible change has happened because it is this tight here. And then again, the comparisons, I've done multiple comparisons. There are different searches for other periods. Wait, is this trying to see different periods? So this is February, and then this period. So yeah, these are different periods. So you can see, I've run through different periods. You can see the difference, the comparisons. This is supposed to be filled by at least several of them. Then they're clearly missing. So this is the center of the blockage. It's like you can see, it's like a bow shape where the Pacific plate is going against the Eurasian plate. It's extremely, extremely tight. It's clear that it's gotten much tighter than it was even like a year ago. So that's a sign that we're getting really close, because it's been a very sudden appearance of this pattern, that it's getting so tight, because not long ago we weren't seeing this development. So it's getting close. The Culebra event is getting close, and I've done several searches which show something. This whole area from here through here is in a historical drop. Same through this section, these two sections, and then this section here over the medium long term is totally lacking major earthquakes, all 6.7 and up earthquakes. By dissecting the whole region, you could see that on various levels based on the size and threshold that is missing, they are greatly lacking major earthquakes. It's pretty evident this has not been getting large earthquakes. Here it's the larger earthquakes that are missing, but here it's even modestly large and up, all missing. This has not been getting movement at all. Same for all this, not getting movement at all. East Japan, this whole area has not been getting movement at all either. And going back much further, missing 6.3 and up earthquakes. All the signs are really there across multiple points. Even here isn't getting its magnitude 6s and up either. And the global gridlock is showing because Latin America is not getting its major earthquakes either. Outside of this bend point, which I have focused on for a while, the whole rest has not been getting major earthquakes either. Also, the 6.7 and up threshold, which is my general threshold for major earthquakes, they have not been getting them at all. It's very obvious that outside of this pressure point in the middle, they're not getting them. It's very, very, very quiet in all these sections. You check each of them individually by searching them, and you'll see that they are sorely lacking large earthquakes. So it's happening. The plates are tightening up a lot more now, a lot more than before. It's very recent, these developments, that so many areas are tightening and getting really quiet. So that means the Culebra event clearly is getting closer. It's getting relatively close enough to reveal hints that the megaquake is coming. That's all. It all traces back to tightening of the plates. So the megaquake is coming. This this is going to be the event that triggers the crash. So now for the final part, as we make as as we make it clear what role the megaquake will play and the actual direct impacts, you can see, oh yeah, there's another part that must be covered though. There are two classes of countries. One of them is simply China. I mean, two classes of countries in East Asia. One that is China and one that is the rest of the East Asian countries. China appears to have a less impact of the Cleber event, but is clearly getting more targeted and more impacted by the tariffs. You can see, like, of course, China is actually like the one that has the reciprocal tariffs, even with the 75% remaining after they exempted electronics. Point is, 75% of their exports to the U.S. are probably now going to remain as hit by 145% import tariff for the U.S., effectively shutting 75% of Chinese exports to the U.S. And they're the only country, of course, that's having this happen, as Trump has paused the anything like this for any other country for the reciprocal. Everything else will be those sectoral tariffs, like, you know, those automobile, electronic. So China is being hit the most, obviously, because of that tariff plan. This is enough to far more weaken China's economy, which is already supposedly in a weak standing. Now with this, the retaliatory tariffs from Trump, it's being really severely hit. And it appears like they need that because not only are they the primary export country, but also because they're not going to be as impacted by the Cleber event. So you can see China will be impacted very heavily by the tariffs. So the damage is already happening to China from the tariffs. They're already ensuring that more damage is happening to them. At the same time that casually it happens to be the least affected of East Asia. So here in East Asia, they will be badly impacted by the Cleber event. South Korea and Taiwan are close, but maybe not as directly impacted as Japan. Japan will be absolutely directly impacted by the Cleber event, of course. So the epicenter will be here. It will totally devastate South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. So they're going to be completely smashed, while China will already be destabilized enough. The combination of the 145% retaliatory tariff on China now, and of course what's inevitably going to be no trade with the rest of East Asia when they go down, means China is effectively going to be in ruins anyway, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're not going to be as impacted by the Cleber event, because Trump is already wrecking China with his retaliatory tariffs. So that's, we don't need to go over why China is going to be less impacted by the Cleber event in too much detail, but overall, the tsunami won't be able to hit it as much because it's surrounded by shallow waters. So they're protected. They're also further away from the Cleber event, so they're further away, and they're protected by this, whatever this is called, shoal or something, but very shallow waters. So it makes sense that they are advancing the destruction by making it the only country hit by retaliatory tariffs and sky-high ones. So they're going to basically enter a deflationary crash due to being double hit by sectoral tariffs and Trump's retaliatory 145% tariff. And then you don't have to, Trump doesn't have to worry about tariffing the others in East Asia at all because they're going to be completely wrecked. So now we will go into here and see why. The Culebra event epicenter will be located very nearby, just off the coast and then of Japan, and then the actual rupture will run all the way along Japan, and it appears likely that it will even continue all the way through here. At this point, it doesn't even seem necessary to trigger the full collapse for it to actually run all the way down here. So either way, of course, the Culebra event itself will be enough to totally crash them anyways. This is the Culebra event, the main rupture. These are the ports. Look at all the industrial areas. All this, these are all the refineries and industrial areas, all the ports. Everything is at sea level. All this in the middle of Tokyo is flat and at sea level. It's going to be completely annihilated. Like, you cannot have a city built all at or near sea level on former marshland right next to the Culebra event epicenter and have anything survive. It's going to be completely wiped out by the Culebra event, and that will then trigger the full global economic crash. There'll be no trade at all happening. So we have just covered why uh, uh, why it's assured that Asia in general will crash. That effectively ensures that it's a complete crash. I guess they want to ensure that it's going to be a complete wipeout of the global financial system, because everything I've just discussed ensures that nothing will really survive this crash that's going to happen. And then the final part is the global fallout from the megaquake. So then the tsunami will then go across. It'll be a pan-Pacific tsunami. It will then hit the U.S. West Coast and the rest of the Pacific coast. So all of the port. My estimate is the tsunami will be more than enough to go far inland in LA. Look how far inland. It's still only at 20 meters elevation, and it would be way too conservative to say that the tsunami would not get past the 20-meter mark, so which would already bring it halfway across LA. I think the tsunami should easily be more than 60 meters. So that takes it all the way in until where the hills start in East LA. So all the way to the east side of LA is likely to get the tsunami, and so it'll be more than enough to ruin everything, because that will completely wipe out all the port area, all of the center, these urban centers. Like Long Beach is one of the centers, and then the refineries. There's a lot of refineries here, a lot of industrial area. There is way more than necessary to be completely annihilated by the tsunami. You have Santa Monica, another urban major center, and Culver City. All this likely, most likely within range of the tsunami. So that's LA. So it's mostly SoCal overall. A sizable portion of San Diego is even in the path of it. And then Manzanillo, the main Pacific port of Mexico, same thing. It's completely in direct path. Everything, like the ports in general, are at sea level. Of course, like all of the infrastructure is right by the water level. So it's going to be all hit by the tsunami. So all the ports will be disabled, and that even includes the Panama Canal and the ports of Panama beside it. And it won't matter whether or not their power plant is impacted, because like I expect the tsunami to be at least more than 30 meters. And so the Panama Canal, the whole system is less than 30 meters. So the whole Panama Canal system, that's talking the the hard structures as well as the electrical, everything, the whole Panama Canal system will get swept by the water, so it will be completely dysfunctional. You won't be able to function out of there even. So there'll be no functioning Panama Canal. Their electrical system will be down. There'll be no fueling of ships. And so because there'll be no fueling of ships anywhere along any of the coasts because of the tsunami, no ships at all will be able to move. So this will completely cut Pan-Pacific trade between Asia and the Americas. That is more than enough to fully trigger the crash. So now you get an idea. So I have covered how the global financial system really works and why they are advancing. They're bringing it forward. The crash, like a major cause of the coming crash before the event, before this natural disaster happens, which will systematically weaken the economy, which will worsen the crash even further. It seems to be all a coordinated global crash that we're seeing. So to wrap up, it looks like there will not be economic activity at all globally. All of this effectively shuts everything down. So you will be depending on your own agriculture. You'll need to grow your own food, live off the land, and be completely self-sufficient, because everything I've just explained to you won't leave any economy intact when this is done. So uh, one other important point is that I have been wondering a while when it was going to happen. I've known for a while that this crash was coming. It makes a lot of sense now. These these Donald Trump tariffs are the the message that we got the green light that the crash is officially being started. Even it might seem like it's taking a bit of time for it to really unfold. It's clear this is the crash I've been long awaiting that's coming, and it makes sense. Like the earthquake signs that we are seeing are much more showing that the earthquake is really close. And now with Donald Trump and these activities, everything all at the same time shows that this is the time that I've been waiting for, that the crash I've long been waiting for is being started, even though it likely takes months for the effects to be put in place and show. It's obvious this is it. This is the event I've been waiting for. And so now you just sit back, watch how it'll unfold, knowing that there will not be an economy intact once the new events run their course. And so I've moved to the Amazon, and I'm already preparing for it. I'm planting all my stuff. I got my seeds ready. I'm going next month to plant a whole bunch of stuff, knowing uh, that this is starting. So now that the start is here, I could try to make an estimate for when we will actually see the economy disintegrate. If I had to make a guess, by the latest, it would be the first quarter of next year. The economy will be in free fall. It'll be imploding. Everything worldwide will be coming to a halt. So that likely means that the Culebra event probably is expected in that timeline also. So everything, the Culebra event, the global financial collapse, the fall of the financial system, everything probably on the basis of everything I just showed you should all go down by the first quarter of next year. So there will be nothing going on. Everything will be down by the second quarter of next year. It's game over. So I guess, well, look at the date we're at now. So a year from now, I can pretty much say it's game over for everything. Daily activities, going to your daily sporting events, everything. It'll be all over a year from now. So there's the story. And share this widely. I've given the most comprehensive, complete explanation of what's really happening, including with the earthquake thing, because that's another major thing that's at play here with the clear evidence of what's happening with that. So share this with others. This is the real truth of what's happening now and what is going to be happening with the global economy. So until the next time.